Tom, I'm going to start off with a comment that was given on Facebook by a listener, Kevin Gainey. And I know Kevin, but he led off with a good topic here. He said the biggest turnoff for him with coaches has been those who forcibly pushed a framework or system without building rapport first. And the biggest benefits then were the ones who asked enough questions to accurately identify the underlying issue and not just the presenting problem, which reminded me of all of our discussions on sales. Authentic moral sell is understanding what the person's need, not just trying to sell them something. So with that though, in working with coaches, I know you see that propensity, and I have too, where you have a coach who goes, man, I've got a great formula. I've got this for business coaching, for finance coaching, for health coaching. I've got a great formula. So you hire me and I'm going to walk you through that formula. And the propensity sometimes to make that the focus, which this would be the product or service as opposed to the person. And that's, I think that's something that can tempt all of us as coaches and consultants to focus on this. And it works. This framework works or can work for people, and to focus on that and miss the person. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great observation. And the thing that I see is that the number one challenge in sales for especially new salespeople is the same challenge for new coaches, is they just throw up the catalog of, hey, we can do this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And this is the problem we solve, and this is how we solve the problem. And they don't even know if you have the problem. Yeah. They never dig in and ask. And that's why when somebody says, hey, I'm interested in coaching or being coached, that first session is a discovery session. Mm-hmm. And when you're in sales, that first presentation, conversation, engagement, face-to-face, Zoom, on the phone, doesn't matter. That's a discovery call. And you should be equipped with really, really good questions to really discover what's the challenge, what's the need, what's going on. And it's not you don't stop at the first thing. Oh, we need this, right? You dig into it, because just like that listener said, most people will tell you it's on the surface. They'll say this, yeah, this is my problem. That's not the problem. There's something underneath that's causing the problem. Yeah. And in our gosh, even in our coaching process, not even in the sales process, but in our coaching process, we talk about there's 5 keys in our process. Discovery is the first one.
Yeah.
Right. And out of that comes insight.
Yeah.
Because if you're, a lot of times people are unaware of what's holding them back. Right. They've buried it so far that they're unaware of it. And then once you get insight into it, there's a light on it. Then all of a sudden, great coaches say, well, gosh, looks like there's a choice here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
I like that. I mean, what I've realized, even with myself, Tom, is often if I'm going after coaching and consulting, and we'll talk a little bit about the differences between those, but if I'm going after that, a lot of times it's not always my first attempt to solve something or address something. So sometimes I might be coming and I'm almost I'm a little frustrated. I'm going, okay, I just need somebody to tell me. I thought I could do it. I need somebody to tell me what to do. I need some guidance. And I want somebody to understand me. And an acute example of that was when I helped our buddy, Dr. Randy James, transition his medical practice to a cash pay only, a functional medicine model where he really went deep with people. What we realized, and I was doing the sales initially, I was taking that call from the person on the other end of the line. The majority, it wasn't a huge majority, 60-40 or something, was often women. And it was often women who were dealing with something and they were kind of frustrated and realized that, and it was kind of my natural sales process as a student of Ziglar to understand them. And what we realized is, and it kind of came after my own surprise of going, oh my gosh, that's the second, second call out of the last 6 where this lady's crying in the first 10 or 15 minutes just because she feels understood. And what we kind of came back to the drawing board and realized, and that's our first line of care. So if they're coming to get care and we're going to give them 100% of the care, the first 10, 15% of their care might happen in that first phone call. They feel understood. They feel like, oh, somebody gets me. And that was an acute example to me, maybe more so than even some of my past sales efforts, of the importance of that. And I realized that's what I want. And to Kevin's Gainey's response here, it was interesting because the last person I paid, and it was more of a consulting role, which again, we'll hit on, but the last person I paid, they did that. Just what you talked about. What'd you say? They threw up on me. they got me. They got the first thing and said, okay, here's my stuff. And I knew, and I saw it and I realized this is stuff they use for everybody. That's okay. So we went through, I understand. But of course I'm thinking, I'm paying you to look through that, understand me, and tell me which of those fit me. Which, back to Randy, I mean, he's a functional medicine, he's an MD. He knows primarily what's going to help people, but his job is to come in and figure out, but what's going to work for this person? Because he's going to tell you, Tom Ziglar, hey, you know what? Why don't you do X, Y, Z to fit your life and fit your capacity and fit your issues? He's going to tell me something different, very different. Now it's going to culminate in some similar things, but we're going to go about it different ways. So yeah, I feel like that is such a huge issue that needs to be, you've got to be a good asker, a good understander of people, and to realize that that's what I feel like, Tom, that your first win as a coach or consultant is for that person to go, yes, you understand me, you get me. And I don't know what the percentage is. I want to make it a high one though, that is your first win, your first line of care is what I think of.
Yep, I agree. And I'm just recalling the first time I met Randy when I came out to your office, and
yeah,
I think we had a late lunch because it took most of the morning to do the stuff. And
yeah,
you asked me at lunch, "What do you think?" And I was like in tears because
yeah,
I felt heard.
yeah.
Right.
I remember that.
And all it was just like the whole definition of complete physical completely changed.
Yeah.
Right. Because normally you go into a doctor's office and you get a complete physical and it's like, okay, your blood work is this, you need to take this and you need to stop eating that. And then they look at you and weigh you and say, do you have any questions? Right. That's like and this was like these deep questions about not only what my situation was health wise, but what I wanted it to be and why.
Yeah.
And that's what a coach does. And so there's a huge, people are so tired of the noise. They're tired of the catalog. Hey, look, I'll just go to Amazon. Right. It's like a website of a million catalogs. That's what it is. If somebody's really trying to take their life to the next level, they don't need another catalog.
Amen. Thank you. Yeah.
They need somebody who understands and asks the questions to not only understand where that person is, but to even help that person understand where they are. Because there's so much noise that people don't know where they are.
It's information overload. We get that. And again, pointing to myself, because I'm a participant in here, I will tend to, out of impatience, here I am right now today, I have a need. I don't want to go find a coach or a consultant right off the bat. I'd really like the issue solved right now. So I'm going to go to Dr. Google, as Randy would call it, and try to figure something out right now. And ultimately, often in certain areas, I just can't. I do need a coach or a consultant. So by the time I've come to them, I've done that though. I've looked at this, I've looked at that. I've kind of got information to overload. Again, I'm going to say I'm probably a little bit frustrated, if nothing else. And so I go to somebody and I want them to understand. So yeah, we're pointing to this first aspect of, and it's an exploratory step one. I like to think of it in terms of an audit. Man, I can't help you until I audit you.
That's right. Let's see, prescription without diagnosis is malpractice.
Oh, that's stout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for those listening, the difference to me between a consultant and a coach is a consultant is an expert who's going to bring the solution, right? A coach is somebody who's going to help you uncover where it is you want to go and then ask you the questions that you commit to so that you own the process, right? So there's a difference there. They're mowing our yard right now, and I would hire a consultant to mow the yard. I don't need a yard coach because I don't want to do the yard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I might hire a coach if I wanted to understand how the roots grow, right? So that I could start, but I just don't want to know that much about it. But when it comes to my life, I want a coach who helps me to understand how the roots grow.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that for a second, Tom, because I was playing with that as people responded. Hopefully we'll get a couple of responses, but we've already said this multiple times, coach and consultant. A lot of people, I think, use those in tandem. I separate them, and you just gave somewhat of a separation, but I wanted to look at, what is it that you need when you're coming forward? If we look at a health coach specifically, we generally want people come and they want someone who will give them direction, give them prescription, like you talked about. But we generally, in that context, in that category of coaching, we are looking for some encouragement, some motivation, some accountability even. Now, oftentimes in my business, I don't, just like you said, I'm not looking for that. I don't need accountability. It's my business. I'm accountable to myself. I'm plenty motivated. I don't really need your encouragement. I need direction. I might be looking for a little affirmation, because here's what I'm thinking of doing. What do you think? I do find myself I do that with you, Tom. I do that with Randy. I do that with friends. I'll bring together and say, hey, this is what I'm looking at doing. What do you think? See if I'm off base, get a little counsel. So I'm looking for some affirmation and a little bit of direction, not encouragement, motivation, accountability. I put those in the coaching. And nurturing is another good one there that coaches do well. Our buddy, Stephen Makehamson, he was a high school football, basketball coach. Man, he knows how to encourage and motivate and give accountability and to nurture and whatnot. Now, that may be something that you need. That's great from a client standpoint. Do you need those things, or do you not? You just need direction. I like that differentiation with coaching and consulting. And I'm not biased. It's tangible to me because as a provider in that arena, I am a consultant, because as a coach, that's not my forte. I'm not the best encourager, motivator. I don't want to keep you accountable. I just want to give direction. So it shows me who I should work with, but that shows us both. It shows me, one, what I'm offering and what I'm not. And I got to tell my prospects that. And as a prospect, as a customer of this, then I need to go forward. I'm going to be best to find somebody if I know what I need, and then audit them to see if that's what it looks like they provide or not.
When I think of what a coach does versus a consultant or an expert or an auditor, let's just use, you said a health coach versus trainer, right? A lot of people get a trainer.
That's good. Yeah.
So in my mind, a trainer is somebody who you go and see, and they know how to work out, and they teach you how to do the moves correctly, and they plan the workout, and you just go and do the workout. The problem is that most people show up, and it's not the lack of physical ability or knowledge to do the moves that's holding them back. And this is where a coach comes in. So a coach comes in and says, oh, well, why do you want to work out? What's the end goal? What's the purpose? What are you working towards? Well, why haven't you worked out in the past? What's kept you from being, in the shape that you want to be in? And they take a holistic whole life balance, and they don't assume that you're like everybody else, that they work out, right? Just because You're the same age range and you got the same body shape as the other 22 people this person's working out. They don't assume any of that. And then they say, okay, it's more than just a physical workout. So a coach, in my mind, is really going to get into the mental. They are going to provide encouragement and motivation, and they're going to send you texts and emails and encouragement throughout the week. You might only be going in 2, 3, 4 times a week, but you're going to feel that. And then they're going to bring in a coach is going to either recommend or connect you with other people who have skills outside of their expertise that you need, maybe a nutritionist, maybe a physical therapist, right? And so they're going to bring this holistic approach based on what they discover. And if they're not in discovery mode the whole time,
Yeah.
like this is where our trainers and coaches to me separate. A trainer says, this is how you're doing it. This is how you should do it. A coach says, gosh, I noticed you lean to the left when you do that. Why are you doing that? Oh, well, I've got an injury in my left shoulder. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, a lot of times you'll see this, good trainers will turn into coaches over time because it's a natural human relationship skill. And so one of the things that I tell people who are interested in becoming a coach, you should go through the process. You should go through a coaching system, whether it's something we have or somebody else has. And the reason is that your eyes are going to be opened up. You're going to see the world in a way that you never saw it before, right? It's just the same way with salespeople. Hey, you know what? I think you should take a coaching approach to sales versus, the old school, scripted kind of pressure type, because people don't respond to that. They never did, right? They did that. They responded better than somebody who didn't have a plan, but they don't respond near as well as to somebody who's trying to understand what it is that they need and what they need to discover on their own. So coaching, when you look at the top 5% in any category, you'll find coaches supporting that person. I mean, it's just part of the deal. And so the question is, do they get good enough to afford a coach, or did coaches help them become world class so that the money didn't matter?
And that was a big discussion point that I didn't know if I wanted to get into necessarily in the show here, Tom, but people talk in the thread and the Facebook question where I asked this, which folks, if you want to be a part of that, it's just on my personal page, Agent K Miller on Facebook is where I generally ask these questions and get a lot of feedback. And they talked about money. There was actually, the thread was still going when we started the show here, and people were talking about that. People can't afford it. And of course, other people saying, we all afford what our priorities are, and we went back. So I don't know if cost is what we want to get into, but I like your perspective on coach and trainer. And it made me think again about myself, because I'm often pursuing so many things. If I am wanting to get better at mountain biking, I'm already an expert mountain biker. I need a trainer. I need somebody to look at what I'm doing and see how I can improve and say, hey, do this, do that. Here's what I would prescribe. Here's how you can go up another level. I don't need a coach there. Now, how about meditation? There I could use a coach because, one, I don't have knowledge. I am not an expert. Two, I'm kind of struggling with my motive because I don't really want to do this. I want the benefits of it, but I don't enjoy doing it. I love mountain biking. Don't need any encouragement, motivation, nurturing, nothing there. And you mentioned mental, and honestly, that's a huge defining point. I think in this coaching, do you need, maybe you got a better term, Tom, but do you need mental support as part of this, or do you just need directive, prescriptive? I think that's a great point for us to look at again as customers, as prospects, as we're going to look for a coach / consultant, whoever's going to help us. Or is this somebody who you feel like you need some mental guidance as well, some mental support, some encouragement, motivation, accountability? Or are those things good? You just need prescriptive help? Because I can go along in different areas of my life and I can separate those two pretty quickly. And I also love it from a provider standpoint to look at, where are you strong? And I found myself sometimes I want to be a coach, even for my kids. Sometimes I want to be a coach. I want to nurture them along. That is not a skill set that I have. I've not pursued trying to grow it. I don't enjoy that. I don't look for, and part of it's, I don't look for it for myself. I'm pretty driven. I'm writing a book on drive. I'm pretty driven. I often need help in how to drive better, which way to drive. Okay. That's more, again, consultant. So I like that coach trainer, and you looking at pulling out just the mental aspect. Is that being too simplistic?
It's obviously, it's got a lot. We can all pull out an example. Oh, they're a coach or they're a trainer, and we can argue about that and everything. And when you said pulling out the mental, coaches understand that it's all about the mental, right? I mean, it's like, because that's the governor on your system, your mental processing, the way you think about it, what you believe about yourself. That's going to determine how far you go. And because here's the reality is, if we're learning something, it's like, when in your bike riding career, in the first couple of years, you made, incredible gains every 3 months. I mean, people who could watch you would say, wow, look at them. There's some, and then the further you go down the road, it's like getting just a little bit better takes so much time, so much energy, so much dedication, and an outsider might not even notice it. Right. And so that's where the mental fortitude and grit and determination's got to come in. And I was smiling when you were talking about the mental, because my goal early on was to be a professional golfer, and Hank Aney was my golf coach, and he's well known. And I remember one day I'm having a lesson, and he started to go into the mental side of the game. And by the way, most touring pros, they have a swing coach and then they have a mental coach, right? They got a psychologist or somebody like that working with them on mindset. And so I'm sitting there working on it. And then he says, okay, well, I was getting ready for a tournament. And he says to me, what do you think about as you are getting ready and then you hit the ball? Like, what's going through your head? I said, nothing. I'm like literally thinking of nothing. And I asked him, was that good? And he said that was good. Because what we think about in the moment of action, that either slows down or speeds up our ability to process information.
Yeah.
And so, but I've always wondered, hey, is that like the highest level of thinking that you can have right before you pull the trigger is nothing? Maybe it is.
It's interesting you're saying that, because it's not fair to separate one, consulting, coaching out, or training, coaching as, one deals more with mental or not. It's probably the type, is it mental support or mental direction? Do you need the mental support of, again, back to encouragement, nurturing, motivation, or do you just need direction? Because you're totally right, Tom. I'm up here. I'm about 15 miles from the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. So this is where a majority of our Olympic athletes come and train. There's another one out in San Diego. But a lot of the winter athletes we just saw, man, they train right down here. So I know a guy, I met him through Randy, who does neurofeedback, literally puts stuff, what is it called? Kind of a cap on your head with electrodes, and is mapping your brain to see how it works. He works with a lot of high-end gold medal Olympic athletes, because he's looking for that, just like what you talked. He's looking for a 0.01% change in like that. And like right before you take that lift off to do your twirl on figure skating, or whatever. What are you thinking? Those little bitty things, but I would put that more than mental support as mental directive. And you've probably done that too, Tom. I'm actually thinking about the last coaching client that I worked with, coaching consulting, really consulting. I'd put him in there, but I did have some things to go, okay, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. And you're thinking of yourself this way. And I really see your best opportunity to position you this way and for you to embrace your role in this way. So it was a directive from a mental standpoint more than I didn't need to pump him up. I didn't need to motivate him. I didn't need to come in and rah cheer and encourage him, which again, that's a huge part of a lot of great coaching. And again, that's why I like this show. I like the topic. I like the differentiating of one, if you are looking at it, do you know what you need? And as a provider, I'm saying you should know what you have to offer. Where are you strongest? And you may say, man, I will come in. I can help motivate you. If you're lacking motivation and confidence, man, I can help you there. Well, that's awesome. There's a lot of people who need that in certain areas. I need that for meditation. I don't need that though for my cycling over here.
Yeah. And I think, just to draw a line, let's just call it the line between trainer and coach.
Okay.
A trainer is going to look on the technique, the physical side, and they might motivate you while they're with you in the workout, right? Mm-hmm. And good trainers will do that, right? They'll get you fired up. They'll get you ready to go do it. Coaches are more focused on, hey, how do I equip this person to motivate themselves? Because if we're all looking for external motivators all the time,
yeah,
then my goodness, it's going to be a long life. It's going to be a long life. We got to learn how to motivate from the inside out. There's a lot of studies on what people want and need, and just to we're talking about from a coaching perspective, from a coach's mindset, and also from do I need a coach? So here's what's interesting. The number one, or other than healthcare, the number one thing that people want when they go and work for a new company is they want a personal and professional development plan. Mm-hmm. In other words, what they want is somebody in leadership there to say, hey, you're valuable, and we want to help you grow into a more capable person tomorrow than you are today. Well, how does that happen? Well, Gallup, a whole nother study says that the silver bullet in increasing performance on the job is an intentional goals coaching conversation done every week. And so what do people want? They want an organization that sees a future for them. And then I've taken those two things and they want to grow. And I've taken the Gallup study and I've kind of molded it. And I've said, look, the number one business challenge today is businesses need to attract, develop, and keep top performers. That's the number one business challenge. And then the number one skill of a leader is that they need to hone in and develop is the ability to have a goals and growth focused conversation around attitude, effort, and skill every week. So if you're a business leader out there and you're trying to grow your business, the silver bullet is to have your leaders work with everybody on the team one-on-one every week, even for just 10 or 15 minutes, around their attitudes, efforts, and skills. How is that individual going to own those three areas to improve so that they can contribute more? And so if that's the big issue in business, and I'm a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, a mom or a dad, or report to myself, and what business has identified as the number one reason that productivity and performance goes up is that what I just said, then why wouldn't we want a coach who's going to play that role in our life, who's going to help us create a personal and professional development plan, and then have intentional conversations with us every week about the progress we're making on the plan we created for ourselves? I mean, that's a really foundational thing. And I'm sure that if you took all your money and you invested it in the success of a company or an athlete or something else, you would probably want them to have a coach.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about an athlete, my gosh, look at the NFL. I mean, your buddy Bob Bodine and know some other people who work in that industry. Man, that is rife with. So here you've got a team. What's an NFL team? How many players are on a team? I have no idea.
I'm guessing 45 or 50
45 pages. So these guys are all in there. The least paid person's probably making 150, 200 grand. I
or
mean, they're
more.
or
Yeah.
more. The
Yeah.
team has the best trainers, the best coaches, the best support. And yet, how many of those guys are also paying personally out of their own pocket for high end trainers? My understanding or my experience is most of them in sports overall. They're going outside and they're paying for somebody in the off season to help them specifically grow. That's pretty telling.
I'm saying this tongue in cheek, but when you look at somebody like Tom Brady, I think he probably has 6 or 7 different specialty coaches that he works with.
Yeah.
And tongue in cheek, I bet his coaches have coaches to help the coaches coach better. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's just this, because we don't know everything, and we don't see our blind spots as fast as somebody else does. And it's in the athletic performance world, it's about getting a result as frequently and as fast as possible, as frequently as possible and as fast as possible. That's really what peak athletic performance is I want to go out there and I want to perform at my maximum capacity as frequently and as fast as possible, over and over and over again. And there are so many variables into that. And in order to do that, I need somebody who's invested in me, looking at me and asking me the questions to say, hey, it's time to change up the routine. Hey, we're not making the progress that we needed to make. Or, hey, look at this. We could go over here and help on this.
I mean, you're talking about something that's so acute to me. And I think I talked about it in a recent show. If not, it was with somebody talking about the show that I did with Dan Pink. He has the book, The Power of Regrets. It just came out. And that's one of my regrets. You're speaking to it, Tom. I was a professional cyclist. I achieved enough to get a pro license and to race professionally on the circuit. That's pretty big deal. I'm proud of that. I was an incredibly sporadic and mediocre pro. And the primary reason is I was so uncoachable, especially I had some opportunities in my early 20s where I was on some big podiums. I had some really shiny days. And then I'd have a whole bout of really bad ones. I was so uncoachable. I was arrogant, honestly. And I regret that to this day. I regret that. I could have done so much more. But now you mentioned Tom Brady. And of course, people are going to hear right away, of course he has 6 full-time, trainers. He can afford it. We're back to the money aspect. And there's no easy answer for that. I understand people are strapped. I do think we tend to afford what's priority, to us. And I have heard a lot of stories from the people on the bookshelf behind me who have said, you know what, I was at the end of my rope. I spent my last dime. Now I'm going to exaggerate. I'm going to share some exaggerated, perspectives, and that's it. There's some stories back here of literally people going, man, I took my last dime. Literally had one not long ago who said I maxed out a credit card. Not telling any of our Dave Ramsey folks to do that, not advocating that, but just making a point. And I got coaching, and it was the most valuable thing I had ever done. Now, be far better off to save the money, put it aside, do without something else, and pay for it. Don't use your credit card. Don't jeopardize your mortgage payment or your family's welfare. But man, we hear it's hard to refute the testimonies that we hear from people who did what it took and invested in a coach. Because Tom, as you said, it's just hard to see our blind sides. And I wish we all had a Yoda that came along and some mentor who just for free invested in us and guided us. It just doesn't happen much. That is another option. We talk about that. Go ask, look at people whose guidance you would like and go ask them, take them out to coffee or lunch and ask them. But it's hard to get invested counsel, which is really why, not to go down that trail, why we have such problems with people who are offering free coaching and trying to do that, and people who want free coaching. You generally don't have enough investment and engagement from either side, from either party, from the coachee or the coach, when money's not on the table. It's just behavioral psychology.
It is. It is. It's, I remember early in my career at Ziglar, I think I was, early 20s, and we were selling products on the product table at a big event, when Dad would do the big event. And so this guy comes up, and he's, older than me, probably 30. And he looks at our package, and one of the bigger packages back then, it was $300.
Yeah.
And he looks at me. And so this is, 25 years ago, maybe, well, more than that, 30 years ago. He goes, $300. Wow, you can buy a nice suit for that. Why wouldn't I buy a suit? Because I don't have money. Getting started in my career, I need a suit. I didn't have an answer for him. And so later Dad comes up, and I said, hey, this guy came up, and, he said, gosh, $300, I could buy a suit with that. I need a suit for my career. And I said, well, Dad, with somebody that tight on money, how do we justify a program? Basically 30 hours of audio is what it was. It was 2 programs bundled together, cassette tape days. And he looked at me and he said, son, a suit won't change his life, but this will. And I think the more that bite hurts on people buying the audio program, the more they listen to it. I mean, it's just...
It is what we invest in. Tom, it's interesting that you say that, because probably, I'm going to guess, around 35 years ago or more, that I questioned my dad, Dan Miller, of 48 Days, The Work You Love. And our family was not doing great financially. I knew that. And he's going to an event. I need to ask him, because it'd be really funny if it was a Ziglar event. It was an event or a seminar. It was something like that. I bet it was Ziglar. It might've been a Carnegie course, something like that. And I just remember the dollar amount was $500. I was like, seriously? $500? You're going to, how on earth can something, it was kind of that same, like, how can it be worth that much? He said, man, if it gives me one good idea in my work, in my business, in my life, it could be worth 10 times that, 100 times that. And it did, it changed that perspective for me. And, it'd be interesting to do an audit on every person who's been on the Ziglar Show, which we're over 175 guests, from, Andy Andrews and Dave Ramsey and Seth Godin and all these people. It'd be interesting to find out if any of them have not ever paid for coaching. That'd be an interesting survey to do, just to support coaching. Because I'd say chances are 100% have paid someone along the way for coaching. We know that from Seth Godin's story back when he couldn't afford squat. He was paying the money for Ziglar cassettes. What did he say? It's like a couple $100 or something. Do you remember the story?
Something like a couple hundred, and he didn't have the money. And
yeah,
or he didn't say he didn't have the money. He just said it was a stretch, and he wore him out.
Yeah.
He wore him out, and then he bought another set, and then he wore that one out. And, and he's, so, people, I think what Seth has really said is for everybody who hears him tell the story is, look, I didn't get here because I'm smarter than you, or that I've got some special gift or some superpower into the inner circle. Gosh, I got here because I made a decision of where I wanted to go, and I was going to change my mind, input the good stuff into my mind and associate with the right people on the way there. And he's master at telling the world, the bad decisions he made along the way. So he wasn't immune to bad decisions along the way. But what never changed was just this curiosity and quest for, gosh, how can I be better? How can I do that differently? What else is there to learn? Yeah. And that's something that the difference between good and great coaches to me is, a good coach will sit down and uncover the need and ask the right questions and get you to take ownership. A great coach just gets really curious in there and says, what's going on? What's driving all that? Then they go out on their own and they find new information to bring back to, oh, you know what? I think this is what you need. And that motive and that follow through to go out and discover what they need and to learn internally what they need so they can transfer it to who they're coaching. That's what keeps elevating them is, great coaches who make a lot of money coaching and who have the who's who of people out there who call them coach. Those people that are coaching are helping to build that coach even higher, right? Because a coach is constantly, it's really, Google's like the search engine for, you can find anything on it. Well, a great coach is like a search engine trying to figure out, what makes this person tick and what's the fastest path to success for them. And then when you start doing that over time, you just get this incredible sense of what it takes to help somebody develop into who God created them to be. And then you start hanging out with even more successful people because they seek you out. Somebody who is very, very successful and doing very, very well financially, they'll hear what a coach says differently based on what that coach is charging them.
Yeah.
Right? If they don't think the source has confidence in themselves, then they're going to pay a little bit less attention to it, even though it's great advice. I mean, I wish it wasn't that way, but that's just the way we're wired. And so what's interesting is good coaches become great coaches become greater because those who they're working with keep elevating them.
Yeah. If as folks, and I'm thinking about those of you looking for a coach, thinking about a coach, if you find somebody who on their webpage or in their video, or even in their first 5 minutes of talking to you claims that they know what you need, I'd say run the other direction. So there's no way that they can know what you need just based on what you said right there, Tom. There's no way they can know that without some, and I'm going to say detective work. A good coach or a consultant is going to be a great detective. Now they may be able to do that. And I'm going to talk to the coaches that you can do that pretty deftly, fairly, even through just an input form on your website. I rely on that. So if you go to kevinmiller.co and go to where I have an intake form that pretty much asks the questions that I need to know. And in my own bio or my own offering, I'm saying, hey, here's what I do well and here's what I don't. I'm trying to filter them out so I don't even get an inquiry unless it's probably somebody I can help because I filtered them out through one of those. But it's a detective opportunity. We need to be detectives to figure out what people know. And something you said a minute ago made me think back to not a sale, kind of a sales aspect, but something that I ask people as they are trying to step out and be an influencer. They're trying to offer something out there. And it's saying, do you want to, in this, whatever your arena is, whether it's health coach, business coach, something like that, are you looking to awaken people to a need or to direct those who are already awake to it? To me, that's a huge differentiator in any business, product, or service, because I know that I'm not an awakener overall. I'm not going out and trying to sell health and wellness to people. It's going to offend some people. I'm not hanging out in fast food lines. I don't think those people are probably that awake to real health, wellness, and nutrition. I'm talking to the people who are already along those lines and trying to help them. If we talk about drive, which is the area that I like so much, I'm not as good at helping people speed up and figure out, where and how and what they want to drive. I'm really better at refining people who already have some high speed driving skills from a personal standpoint. Now my book will hit more than that, but that's really where, if I'm going to work with you, that's who I'm going to work with. I just know that about myself. That's where I'm best, set. So again, that awaken or direct, are you looking to, we're back to that aspect of a mental, support or directive? I think it's huge. That's our responsibility as coaches and consultants to know, but I want people to hear that who are looking. That's for you to go figure out. And it may take a little bit of a discovery session with you, with a coach who's hopefully doing the job of pulling that out. That is, I think, the essence of a discovery session, which Tom, there's so many different ways that people do coaching, that they take off coaching and consulting, and then they take off prospects. I talked about an intake form. A lot of people have an introductory session. Maybe you do a 15-minute call first. It's going to be different for different people.
Yeah. In our process, and I love the way we do it. Somebody's thinking about either becoming a coach or they're thinking about engaging a coach. We just ask them this question, after 50 questions, where we help them to, we ask them the questions where they get to paint the future. I have a saying, we create the future we see. So what future do you see for yourself? Now, a problem is people are blind. They don't see a future for themselves. And so a coach starts to clear their lenses, right? It's like, imagine you've got on sunglasses and they're caked with mud, and a coach's job is to come in and say, hey, let's clean that mud off. Let's get a clear picture of where you want to go.
Yeah.
And then that person starts to awaken, right? You said you're not an awakener, but you are. I mean, you're awakening a lot of things in this podcast for people, right? You're making the thing it's just not your first love, which is great. It doesn't have to be your first love, but the process is the same. We clean off the glasses,
Mm-hmm.
and we say, how does the world look now? Yeah. And a lot of times on the phone, people will cry. Like, really? You think so? Yeah. Hey, yeah, that's up to you. I do think so, but it's up to you. And then that last question that we ask is, wow, could you see yourself living that? And how would you feel if you did?
Yeah.
And then we say, would you like some help getting there? That's how we engage and invite people in.
Yeah.
Would you like some help? Right. But you can't say, hey, I know where you want to go, and this is the process, and it's X amount of dollars a month. You ready? No, it's you help them get clarity on their vision of where they want to go. So now they know where they want to go, but they're still in the same situation. They don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
Right. And so the coach just says, would you like some help on getting there?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you bring to mind what I said a minute ago of watch out for the person who the coach who too quickly says, hey, I know just what you need. And instead, the one I like to hear is, let's see if I'm the best fit for you. Let's investigate that. No different. Again, we're back on sales to say, I don't care what your product or service is. There's no way that you can know right off the bat, or should know, or even act like you know that I need it. You're to help me as a ethical salesperson. You're there to help me figure out, is it what I need? And you mentioned that, Tom, it is up to you. And that hit me, man, many years ago in a sales platform, when I heard the next person say, well, all right, I'm going to give it a shot. I'll see if it'll work for me. And it dawned on me, those people, it never works out for. If you're looking for that thing, will it work for me? My thought is, no, it won't. You will work for you. Now, granted, it's got to, give you some guidance. It's got to be a valuable tool, resource, and package of guidance, but you will work for you. So coming into coaching, if it's a submissive, hey, I hope this will take me along, makes me think of climbing Mount Everest. You don't hire a Sherpa to carry you. You hire a Sherpa to go alongside to help you, but you are the only one who can take those steps. Even if you're Eric Weinmayer, who we had on the show, and he's blind and he had to be really guided, but he did it. It was his feet. It was his step up the next ledge. It was his balance. It was his using his senses to the fullest degree. That's what we are to do. Now, I do just want to, before we wrap up with this, Tom, that of course you're going to find yourself sometimes as somebody who wants coaching, feeling like, I don't know enough of what I need to go forward and say, hey, I need a coach or a consultant who will give me X, Y, Z. I understand that. So I think that's coming back to just what we've gone over. Your first audit of a coach is to say, maybe in that scenario, to say, look, I don't know what I need. Can you help me figure out what I need, whether it's you or not? And that's something I love about Ziglar. It's something I've adopted, that if I'm talking with somebody, to say, look, you come in, let's figure out what you need. And again, if I'm the best fit, because if I'm not, it may be you. And I know for me, for every inquiry that I get for coaching or consulting, I don't know the stats exactly, but I'm going to say it's close to 1 out of 4 that I even feel like I'm a good fit for, and I refer them out. Um, and that probably gains me more trust and referrals than anything else. Because people trust that. And it's just authentic. I realize that, man, I'm a fit for a finite amount of people. Um, but yeah, I think this did a good job. We didn't even get through. We had some other comments, but they really covered this
Good.
from a high level of, yeah, what do you need? And from a coaching standpoint, being responsible for what you have to offer. It's the most profitable way to go about it, don't you think?
100%. Yeah. I just think it would serve every human being well to learn the skill set and motive of a great coach.
Yeah.
Because if you do those two things, if you know how to dig and ask the questions where the individual ends up taking ownership of their own life, right? And then the motive is purely to make a difference in somebody's life, right? It's not to make a sale, it's to make a difference in somebody's life. Then everything else will take care of itself.
Yep. Yep. Man, I've been called to the mat on that just with parenting. I wish I could coach and consult my kids all in the same way, but it just doesn't work. So,
Oh my gosh. I tell you what, my deal is I'll be coaching someone and I'll give them some advice and I'm like, man, I should really do that myself.
yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so fun. And that's why we need a coach, right?
That's
Because
it
we
is. And
won't call ourselves out. That's
that's
why I
what
have a
gives me
coach.
accountability is with my kids of going, okay, so here, I got some good counsel for you. Now, you know that I don't do this well either, but Tom Ziglar says, I can always reference somebody else, I'm just the messenger here. That's relevant. Well, hey, I hope this is beneficial for everyone who is interested in getting a coach, which I hope is most people, and for those who are coaching and how they can best serve people. Tom, man, it's a gift to always learn something in these shows with you.
Always.